Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the DVC Show. This week, we're going to talk about whether or not the promotions Disney Vacation Club is offering is a sign of trouble in paradise. Coming up next. Hello, folks. Welcome to the show, coming to you from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friend. Well, actually, at the table, it's just my good friend from DVCstore.com, Mr. Jerry Saito.
Hello, everybody.
Via Skype, my good friend, Mr. Paul Krieger.
Hey, everyone.
And back in the production nook, my good friend and producer, Mr. Corey Fiasconaro.
Welcome home.
Well, welcome to the show, folks. Happy Monday, because these always go up on Monday. It is a Monday when we're recording this. It is a Monday when you're watching this, so I feel okay saying Happy Monday. Just before we get started, as usual, want to make sure you know, if you are interested in purchasing a DVC resale contract, and you might be more interested after this show, please give our friends at the DVC Store a shout. You can reach them online, dvcstore.com, or you can call them 1-800-550-6493. They're also there for you if you want to sell your contract, maybe upgrade to a new contract, rent out your points, rent points, all of it. And that's your phone call, that's your website visit, dvcstore.com or 1-800-550-6493. Okay, so what this show was originally supposed to be was to talk about the Magicseeker Sweepstakes that DVC announced, what was it, last week?
Yeah.
Yep.
But I kind of, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what that is. But we also want to talk about their fall promotion. And we want to talk about what this means overall, because none of these things ever happen because, you know, executives are sitting in a room saying, oh, let's do something fun. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you got to kind of read the tea leaves here. And I think these tea leaves are pretty clear, but we're going to get to that. First, let's start with the Magicseeker Sweepstakes. This is effectively you going and watching a series of videos, answering some trivia questions, and then having the opportunity to select. If you win, you have two prizes you can select. Round trip airfare.
I didn't get that.
Oh, shut up, Siri. I didn't talk to you. Why did it do that? Oh, everything's going off. This is what we get. Welcome to iOS 14. It's doing that like 12 times a day. Yeah. Your choices, if you win the sweepstakes, are a 6-day Walt Disney, or I guess is it a 5-night trip?
Yeah, 5 nights, 6 days.
A 6-day, 5-night stay at Riviera, includes round-trip airfare, and a 6-day Walt Disney World Resort theme park ticket with park hopper option, or a stay at Aulani, including round-trip airfare and a $750 Disney gift card. So, first of all, let's talk about which one we would pick if we were to win this. Now, obviously, for three of us, we are Orlando locals. Yep. So I think, you know, I'm not, I'll speak for myself, but Aulani, absolutely Aulani. First of all, I think Aulani's a better hotel. I like Riviera, but I think Aulani's a much, much better property. And the experience at Aulani is unlike the experience you have at any other Disney resort, DVC or otherwise. It is just breathtaking. And the service level beyond anything I've seen here in a long time. You know, they've gotten better on the food, but food can still be a little hit or miss at Aulani. But you're also on the island of Oahu, and the things, it's just incredible. It's just incredible. I absolutely love Aulani, and I got to shut up because I'm going to start figuring out a way to go quarantine myself in Honolulu for 2 weeks. But what about you, Jerry? Which one would you pick?
Yeah, hands down, Aulani. I mean, I think the Riviera is great, but I get to see Riviera pretty much any day of the week that I
drive
want to
over
drive
there
out
now.
there. Yeah, exactly. So like Alani would definitely be my choice. What amazes me is the value that they're putting on these promotions, like $19,000 for that Riviera reservation or prize, or $20,000 for the Alani. That's the value. I'm amazed by that, but nonetheless, Alani would.
That's why we're going to talk about what this really means.
Yeah.
A little later on, because this is not. Hey, we love you guys. This is not Jackie Gailey coming up with a promotion. Okay. Fiasco.
Yeah, so if I was still in Massachusetts vacationing here, my 2 to 3 times a year that I would vacation here, I would actually probably lean towards Riviera, but I'm not. So I'm a local, I live here, so I'd hands down pick Alani. I've never been, but it's right there as a top tier bucket list item that I need to obtain, is to visit Alani right there with Disneyland Paris, Tokyo. Like, I need to get over there. So right now that would
We're talking about, we were talking last week about doing that trip. Right, because I plan to, if depending on how things are, I'm thinking about next September.
Yeah.
Doing the Alani for a week, and then flying to Tokyo and doing Tokyo for at least 2.
That would be the best trip ever.
And
awesome.
So.
Can I come?
Sure. It's not cheap.
It'll be fun.
So let's ask West Virginia boy. Which one would he? Because you're more the audience here, right? You don't live in Florida. Which one would you pick between those two?
So, being that we vacation so much down in Florida, I mean, I'll round it out. It's 4 out of 4 Alani here, and that's primarily because I've never been there, and it's very attractive to have the opportunity to go there. And as Jerry was saying, with the value of these that they've placed in terms of the approximate retail value of these, that is very it moves a lot based off of the airfare factor. And I know how much it would cost for me to fly from here to Alani, which is significantly a lot more money than me jumping on a Southwest flight for $100 or something direct from Pittsburgh to Orlando. So I think that for Amy and I, our value is more in the Alani trip, whereas we've found cheap ways to get down to Walt Disney World. One thing I will note that we sort of hinted on, and this was talked about a little bit over on Disboards. I was chatting with some people about, they were pointing out that they actually mentioned Park Hopper, and they put a value on Park Hopper right now, which is something that we know currently is not an option that's available. So it makes you wonder whether or not we might see that come back. But I would definitely go with Alani.
All right. Now, Fiasco, you put something on our Patreon channel. Then, if you're not familiar with Patreon, people who want to support us can donate, anything from $5 to $100 a month, and get different kind of content and access to things on our Patreon channel. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. Yep. But I know Fiasco went on Patreon and asked them which one they would choose, and what were the results of that?
So the results of that poll were 65% of patrons who voted, and there were 206 votes, said Alani. And then 35% said Riviera. I'll also read some of the comments as to why. Someone said 5 nights at Riviera. I'm a sucker for the parks. So yeah, I mean, that kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like, if I was coming back on a regular vacation, like, I might be tempted to take that Riviera package just to, save the money for that trip and just have a really good vacation. Angela says, if you've ever been to Alani and can deal with the flight, no contest. Paul says, Alani, no question. Hands down, Alani, no question from Sean. Rick Smith, hard choice, but either place I'd add on days with my own DVC points. Jen says she's always wanted to stay at Alani, and there's a lot more comments, but Alani landslide.
Alani landslide. So what was it, 60?
65-35.
65-35. Again, not a scientific survey by any means. It's anecdotal at best. But it's going to play into what we're going to talk about in a little bit. But let's also talk about the fall 2020 direct sales promotion. I just got to pull it up. Basically, they are offering a promotion right now, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. We normally don't see them this this strong, right, Paul? Would you consider this a strong offer?
So these are decent. These are decent discounts depending on how many points you're looking to buy.
Well, again,
but the noticeable.
That's my point, though. At 300 points, you're going to save $7,000 on a direct contract, which averages out to $23 a point. That's a significant discount.
On average, they are around, I want to say around $7 less than what we saw in the summer. But we know that what summer was them sort of coming back online, trying to really push those sales out then. So this is a decrease from then, but it's notable that you're going to have to at least buy 150 points before you're going to see any savings right now. So there's a lot to unpack with what they're doing, and across the.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Across the board, the incentives are the same for Alani and Copper Creek, and that's something, or Alani, Copper Creek, and Riviera, which is something that we haven't seen as often. Normally, those differentiate themselves a little bit more, so they're trying to they've made it a more simplified package here, but there's some definite discounts to be had.
Well, what struck me about this, other than the fact, as you mentioned, that they're going, Alani, there's always some kind of deal for Alani because it's been like 77 years and they haven't sold out yet. Copper Creek surprised me. And then Riviera. Normally, you would think they really want to boost Riviera sales. So they would make this more attractive on Riviera.
Or, again, they might be trying to push those Alani and Copper Creek because they're 96% sold out of Copper Creek. So they're trying to get rid of that inventory and then potentially get rid of the Alani inventory, which then only gives the option of Riviera. So then,
I see. I don't think that's it. I think they know they can't sell Riviera.
Well,
and so they've got to offer it on this. Now, 150-point minimum if you're purchasing new, 125-point minimum if you are an existing member adding on. And the incentives change depending on whether you are a new member or adding on. At everything, at all tier. Well, first of all, add-ons can be from you have to do a minimum 125 to 149 points, and you're going to save anywhere between $1,000 and $1,200 off that direct price. But where it becomes apples to apples is the 150 to 199, 200 to 299, 300 to 499 ranges. And it is an even stronger incentive for members to add on at those levels because that's really what they need and want. Now, the rumor's been floating around that the minimum buy-in for what they call the blue card membership, which means you get full benefits of being a DVC member, all the discounts, access to Moonlight Magic, all that other stuff. Minimum buy-in is going up to 125 points. When I bought in, last year it was 75. Then it went to 100, and now it's going to 125.
It was at 50 before you.
And it was 50 before that.
Yeah.
So, great promotion, right? Some unusual things, coupled with this bizarre sweepstakes.
And I would also throw out there that another thing we've not seen previously, and I didn't mention this in the article, but it's come out a little bit since then. There are also incentives currently for the sold-out resorts. Now, not all sold-out resorts have an incentive, and most of these don't start until you purchase around 150 points. But they are giving discounts when you hit certain levels of, if you would call them up and say, hey, I'd like to purchase Boardwalk instead. They are giving incentives for those as well. So that further bolsters the argument a little bit that they're trying to get sales in areas outside of Riviera.
Now, there's no question that, their offices being shut down for a few months where sales were suspended. They weren't selling contracts, or they weren't selling as many as they normally would. Again, a lot of that especially bringing in new members, is based on kiosks in the parks and at the resorts. Of course, parks and resorts were closed, so that had to have an impact. But we knew, even before COVID, that Riviera sales were not nearly as strong as they expected. And we know that a big part of that is because of the resale restrictions. Now, if you're just tuning in, if you purchase at Riviera, if you go to sell that contract on the resale market, the person who buys it can only use those points at Riviera. Whereas if you own at Grand Floridian or Polynesian and you sell it on the resale market, those points are good at all the resorts. So by doing that, Disney effectively made the resale value of Riviera far less. And if you want proof of that, take a look at what this brand new resort is selling for when a resale contract comes up. 125 points at Riviera might sell for about what, 145, 150?
Yeah.
And I just saw a Grand Floridian contract come through this morning, 125 points, priced at 185. There's the difference. That's what Disney was trying to do. They were trying to hurt the resale market. It backfired. It backfired before COVID. Then COVID happened, and it was like God saying, yes, screw you. And it has absolutely pummeled them. So now we get to the point where, like I said, they're not sitting in a room going, what can we do to be nice? This, to me, is a sign that things are a bit worse than even I thought they were. Disney will never give a discount for no reason, ever. 23 years I'm doing this. And I will tell you right now, every discount, every offer, every promotion has always, always, always had a very specific reason and target. The bigger the promotion, the bigger the effort, the more desperate the reason is. And this screams of desperation to me. It means people aren't buying direct. And they're not, and the fact that it's skewed in favor of add-on points means not only are people not buying direct as much as they were expecting, members aren't adding on at the level they expected them to when Riviera launched. That resale restriction did more to affect Disney Vacation Club's relationship with their membership than almost anything else, with the exception of their initial response to COVID. So it's been a 1-2 punch for them from a PR perspective. It's been a 1-2 punch for them from a sales perspective. By contrast, without giving away information, the resale market is booming. So, there's a philosophy called the Streisand Effect. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. That if you try and do something to prevent someone online from doing something, all you end up doing is putting focus on that and getting more people to see it. And they call it the Streisand Effect because Barbara Streisand sued a photographer who was documenting coastal erosion and was posting pictures of the California coastline. And one of those pictures had her Malibu compound in it. And she didn't want that picture out there. So she sued. Well, guess what? Prior to her lawsuit, the picture had literally been viewed 6 times. After her lawsuit, the picture was viewed 1.4 million. It's the Streisand Effect, and I think this is a variation on the Streisand Effect, that we're going to try and suppress resales, and what they end up doing between their resale restrictions and COVID, it was perfect storm. Not that they're responsible for COVID, but this is the perfect storm. I think they'd be in a much better position right now had those resale restrictions not been put on in the first place. Their unwillingness to back away from them is creating this quasi-Streisand effect that is absolutely benefiting resale. Resale is doing phenomenal. They are not seeing a slowdown in sales. They are not seeing that impact on their business. Now, I mean, look, correct me if I'm wrong. This is my opinion. I mean, you're definitely on the resale side, you're the expert.
Absolutely. We've had some of the busiest months we've ever had since COVID's hit. And again, since the resale restriction fell into play with Riviera. So, I mean, Disney's tried restrictions before, but this particular restriction really left a sour taste in basically every member or interested party who was looking to buy. So, yeah, the restriction not good, and then COVID hit, and then it just created, like you said, a perfect storm for people to come and look at resale, and we're having some great months. I mean, I know other brokers out there having some great months. So it's
across the board. It's not just
yeah.
you guys. I mean, you guys are doing.
We're doing great.
Yeah, you're doing really good.
Yeah.
But it's across the board. It's across the board. So I think we kind of borrow from the Streisand Effect, and we call it the Shultz Effect, after Terry Shultz, the senior vice president of Disney Vacation Club. That this was such a bad choice. These resale restrictions were such a bad choice, and didn't listen to the membership. I don't think you had some members that were like, "Oh, I don't really have a problem with it," but you didn't have any members jumping up and down, going, "Yay! I'm glad they did this." Nobody.
Yep.
You have a lot of members going, "I'm pissed off." You created a class system within this membership, and look, I get that if you buy direct, there should be benefits that you get that a resale person doesn't get. I'm okay with that. You know, I completely get, I'm not going to get the same warranty on a used car that I get if I buy it new from the dealer. So I understand there will be differences, but it's what those differences are and what they're intended to do. When it's done because you think that a market shouldn't exist, that you want to try and hurt or ultimately destroy a market, you get what you deserve. So I'm not crying any tears for DVC right now, none whatsoever. And I think the Shultz Effect is in full force. Anybody else?
Well, I mean, something that's interesting that I was thinking of as you were talking is from 1992 up until 2011, everything was identical. There was no difference between resale direct. The prices were very close to each other, within $10 a point. There was really not a huge spread. The resale market was healthy, but it wasn't, people would still buy direct, people would buy resale. It just depends. So as these new, like Terry Shultz or different presidents of DVC came in after 2011, they all kind of wanted to leave their mark. So 2011, they took out a little bit of some benefits. They did it again 2016 when a different DVC president came in, then Terry Shultz came in, did her thing. So it's like, it's almost like the emperors of Rome. They would leave something to remember them by. So it's like these DVC presidents.
Yeah, but it's what do you leave them behind?
Yeah,
my dog goes out for a walk. She leaves something behind. It's not necessarily good.
Yeah, no, it's true.
But
it was completely fine for almost 20 years,
and look, part of the problem is Disney changes senior vice presidents like they change underwear. Okay, that's part of their model, and it's worked for them in a lot of ways. That they move people as they groom them, especially if once you get to the senior vice president level, you're being groomed, right? Or up to that level, you've been groomed, and then they move you around because they want you to have experience in different business models, in different business units, and I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when you do that with something like Disney Vacation Club, that has an outsized reliance on your relationship with your membership, it's a different thing. This isn't like being senior vice president of resorts or being senior vice president of Animal Kingdom. It's not the same. This has this unusual added component. A, it is a real estate transaction. B, the membership is all important. If your members aren't happy, it will impact your business model in an outsized way, as opposed to if you make changes at Animal Kingdom, how that will affect your traffic numbers and your turnstile numbers. It's not the same. And I don't know that that has been fully embraced or appreciated. When you see things like this, when you see restrictions like this, when you see them saying this member is not just more special because they bought direct, they're a lot more special because they bought direct. And this member who didn't, who's still paying dues, by the way, the same dues, the dues aren't different because you buy resale. It's just your buy-in price. That's the only thing that's different. Your dues are the same.
Who's doing everything the same? They're buying the same merchandise. They're buying the same food. They're buying
Amen.
all of, you know, that's this. They're the same
Preach,
client.
Sister Jerry.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's with the exception of their buy-in price.
Right.
Everything else is the same. Yet, they're being told increasingly, you're lesser. And I think part of the rationale was that, and I think to a slight degree this may have worked. Part of the rationale is, okay, let's create this system because everybody wants to belong up here. So if we make this the low end of the spectrum, and we look at these people through our policies, and we send a message to these people through our policies that they're lesser, that they're not as important, they're not as valued as these members, then people are going to want to be these members so that they get that recognition from Disney. And to a degree that worked, but not to the degree they expected. If they're having to do promotions like this in the fall, if they're having to do a sweepstakes like this, where you basically have to sit and consume marketing videos for God knows how long, and answer questions about how well you retained the information. I think this is just further proof the Riviera resale restrictions are an increasing failure. You know, before last year when we would do these shows, we'd say it remains to be seen. Riviera hadn't been open yet. We've got to see where we are next year. Now, of course, nobody expected that it would be like pandemic apocalypse world when we started getting answers, but that is the world we live in, and that's where we are. Paul, before we close, anything you want to add?
The only thing to sort of piggyback off of your point, when you look at what previously inspired people to buy direct, so for someone looking at Riviera right now, it is the fact that you wouldn't have resale restrictions, but if you sold it, you would. With the member minimum for direct benefits, they're increasing that, but there are no direct benefits to talk about right now. I mean, everything is basically gone
right.
in terms of a direct benefit. So why are we raising that when there's nothing there? They should have coupled that with maybe bringing back another benefit or something like that. And then even with these incentives, these prices are insane.
Well, really, what are the really big reasons to buy direct? Moonlight Magic, right? When they rent out parks and do incredible parties, no question. And I get that because that's not paid from dues, right? DVC doesn't pay to do Moonlight Magic. They can't from the dues that they collect for the resorts. That is paid by the money they make from direct sales. Perfectly legitimate, perfectly fun. Annual pass discounts, another big reason people like buying direct. Well, you can't buy an annual pass right now.
And again, the quality of the stay on resale, I say this to my clients, like it's almost smoke and mirrors. Yes, there are some certain perks and benefits you get, but when you're booking your reservations, they treat you the same. When you show up, you're not stuck in some closet out in the middle of nowhere in a room. Like you get the same.
Don't give them ideas.
You get the same great rooms. You get the same great service. You get the same quality. Like there are Moonlight Magic you can't get, annual pass sure you can't get, certain discounts you can't get. But to me, I'm like, it's a no-brainer. Like to me, the resale is you're getting exactly the Disney Vacation Club. You just might not get some of those perks that come along. So I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that was a good discussion. I enjoyed it anyway. Hope you enjoyed it. That is going to do it for our show for this week. We will be back with you again next Monday with another edition of the DVC Show. Have a great week, folks.